Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to wait for the numbers to keep climbing and we'll get started in a few minutes. Bienvenidos a todos. Vamos a esperar unos minutos que se conecten el resto de los participantes. If you've already logged on, feel free to drop a hello in the chat. Hi to Westchester, New York. Hi, everyone. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. People are still trickling in. Again, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jessica Nunez. I'm the manager of youth and family programs for the Newark Museum of Art. And today we have a very special museum crawl with Teatro-Museo Dalí y Fundación Gala-Salvador Dalí. And this program is made possible by a grant from the New Jersey Council for Humanities. Please remember to submit all your questions throughout this lovely presentation in the Q&A, using the Q&A at the bottom of your screens. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can put your questions in the comment box. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Fiona Mata, coordinator of the Center for Dalinian Studies, a center that preserves the library and the documents, the legacy of the artist. She is a graduate in art history and has her master's degree both from the University of Girona. In addition, she is a coordinator of the catalog Raison of paintings by Salvador Dalí, which is an online digital publication dedicated to the definitive scientific identification and cataloging of the works belonging to Dalí's pictorial output between 1910 and 1983. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to write them, submit them in our Q&A. I'm going to hand it over to Fiona. Bienvenida.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Muchas gracias. And it's a pleasure being here. I'm very, very happy and glad to be able to make this little presentation about our museum, which will be like a little tour, okay? And since sometimes it's a little difficult to situate us on the map, we start right away there. That's where we are. So who are we actually? Although you may know the Dalí Theater-Museum, the Dalí Foundation actually manages 3 museums. We talk therefore of the Dalí triangle, okay, like you can see on the map. The main headquarters base would be Figueres, which is where the Dalí Theater-Museum is, and which is the city where Salvador Dalí both was born, raised, and where he eventually died. And then you have Cadaqués on the far east side of the peninsula, and you have Púbol. In Cadaqués, he had his studio, which would be actually the only studio he ever had, and in Púbol he had a castle that he gifted to his wife Gala. Okay, all 3 of them are museums. They are visitable today, even if the pandemics make it a little difficult sometimes, but you can visit all 3 institutions without any problems. So this is the main task of the foundation as well. We try to protect, we study, and we try to make it possible for everybody to be part of this heritage and to learn as much as possible. So another thing that is maybe very interesting to learn in this sense is that Salvador Dalí himself created both the museum, the Dalí Theater-Museum. The house and the castle are posthumous, and he also created the foundation with this endeavor to protect his legacy. Here you have views of the house museum in Cadaqués, which is right next to on the coast actually. Very open. You see the horizon from this room, and he actually had always the sun in the early mornings when the sun came out, flashing him right on the bed. So this must have been very, very beautiful. And the house castle of Púbal, which is on the lower right side, excuse me, which was a more secretive place and a more protected place, because Gala used to live there. It was primarily her home, and she tried to have it a little more, a secret space actually, or a more private space compared to Portugal. If we can change the slide, please. Thank you. And here we have the view of the museum. And I always like to start right away in front of the museum, because since this is the place where Dalí was born, and actually this the theater itself was one of the places where he first exhibited his artworks. It's a very special place. You can't see it here, but just right on the right side of the museum is the actual church where he was baptized. So it's a center actually of Dalí. As said before, the museum itself was previously the municipal theater of the city, and was then bombed during the Civil War. And when Dalí was asked by the city if he would be able to give an artwork to the city as like such a famous person, as such a famous child of the city, let's say it like this, Dalí was like, no, I won't just give you an artwork or a painting or whatever. I will give you a whole museum. Oh, sorry. I will try to speak a little slower then. Thank you, Barbara. Dalí refurbished the museum or the theater and made it his own. But he still, if we can change the slide, please. Thank you. He refurbished the museum, but he tried to keep some of the elements of the museum to remember the past of it, right? So the beams that actually come out of the walls are beams that were burned down during the bombings, but he wanted to keep them. It was very important for him to keep this part of the history of the building itself, so that people would be reminded of the whole history of the museum, not just of the theater, and not just of the museum as it is now. Here we have two pictures of the refurbishment measures that were taken, and the changes that were being done. We can see Dalí. This is in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And from the theater, this was actually the place where all the where the people were seated to see the stage, which is right behind the glass. And you can see that the Cadillac that today is at the center of this place, how they brought it in the museum actually. And since this is the actual Cadillac that they used in the United States to drive around. And as a little point, Gala was the main driver. Dalí actually didn't even have a driver's license, so Gala was the one that drove them around if they didn't have a chauffeur. The previous slide, please. The previous one, this one. Here you can see the Cadillac in position, and this Cadillac was also. Let's just go to the next slide. No problem. The one of the courtyard. This one is perfect. Here you have the Cadillac right in the center. This Cadillac also is a little was an exhibition piece that he used in the Surrealist exhibition in Paris, and it was called the Rainy Taxi. It had a circuit, and actually has a circuit inside of it that pours water outside. So it rains actually inside of the taxi, and it had how do you call it? Little plants inside of it, little snails that were alive and that were actually moving around, and a mannequin that was seated on the driver's side. Next slide, please. Can we change the slides? Here we are. So I will make the preview. Yeah, this one is right. Just so I just started like talking about Salvador Dalí, like everybody knows him, but not everybody knows Salvador Dalí, of course. So like I will just make a little historical context about him. As said, he was born and raised in Figueres. And he is mainly known because he is one of the main or most famous surrealist painters in the history of surrealism. So he's one of these main famous painters or artists of our current modern art history. And he studied in Figueres. Actually, his father was a notary, and as a notary, he wanted his son to learn like a proper job. But Dalí was very eager of becoming a painter, and actually his drawing and painting professor in school was so convinced that he would be one of the greatest artists of the history that he convinced his father to keep on pushing him in this direction. So right away, he went to he continued studying, and he went to one of the most important painting schools here in Spain, which was the Escuela de Bellas Artes of San Fernando, so the Fine Arts School of San Fernando in Madrid, where he learned, where he met a lot of influential philosophers, filmmakers, or authors like Federico García Lorca. He met Luis Buñuel there, and they become close friends. But Dalí left the school. More than leaving the school, he was actually kicked out after pushing his teachers quite to the limit, saying that they weren't that good teachers as they thought to be. And right away, he left. His idea was to go to Paris because he was already becoming quite a known artist in the scene because of the exhibition he was starting to make and because of the contacts he was starting to have. Arriving in Paris, he really worked very, very hard, despite of having not always the support of his family. But history just proved him right, and he went on. He ended up meeting during his time in Paris the then museum director of the Museum of Modern Art, Mr. Alfred H. Barr, who also pushed him to come over to the United States and to start up moving around there and getting more famous over there too. And this is what he actually did in the 1940s when he left, seeing that the situation in Europe with the war was getting worse and worse. He left to the United States, where he was exiled during 8 years. We will come back to this later because seeing one of the pictures that we have in the collection is quite important to explain the story. Here we see the dome, which is on the stage, and we see the ship that Gala and Dalí actually used in Cadaqués to move around the coast. Cadaqués was a fisher village. So a very peaceful place, quite far away from all the hectic life that they could have here in Figueres. So it was a very peaceful place and a very spiritual refuge for them. Next slide, please. Can we change the slide, Imani?
Fiona, I think there's a tiny bit delay. Fiona,
okay.
Yeah, you should.
Oh, sorry.
No, don't worry. I think it's just our distance. It's cool.
Okay, great. Just let me know then. Here we see the stage, and the stage is actually a reinterpretation of Dalí of the Sixtine Chapel by Michelangelo. What you may not think of Dalí is that he was very into learning a lot of about art history. So He was a huge fan of Michelangelo. He was a huge fan of Velázquez, of most of the classic painters, actually. He had Rafael Sanzio was very important to him, as well as Johannes Vermeer, for instance. So there are a lot of reminiscences of these painters in the whole museum. And the more you learn about them, the more you see them reflected in Dalí, which is very interesting. And if we can change the slide, please. This is the center stage, and the center stage is a beautiful place to talk about so many things in Dalí, aside from the influence the classics had on him. I don't know if you can see the little pair on the middle of the stage with the camera on these lighter plays on the stage. This is actually where Dalí is buried. Dalí is buried in the museum, and this was his last wish. So this is a very spiritual place, actually. And being this the center where he is buried, and where you always have to go through, because the museum, being an actual theater, makes it quite difficult to do a chronological walkthrough. So you have to go back and forth like you're in a maze, actually. Makes it very interesting and very symbolical to be here. Dalí was not only a painter; he made sculptures, he made graphic work, he worked in theater, he made jewels. He wrote. He was an author, a very famous one. His autobiography, The Secret Life of Salvador Dalí, is an enormous historical document for us. Because even if there are a lot of things that are fake or that are very that are more comic, like not like comedy style, there are a lot of things that are actually true and are part of his life. Such as, for instance, when he speaks about the passing of his mother when he was very young, or the feeling he had when his best friend Federico García Lorca was executed during the Civil War. These give us a huge insight on how he felt in these situations, even if there then are very funny stories in between. It's really, really recommended to read it. It's very, very funny. And if we can change the slide, please. Because now we're going to see one of the paintings that maybe is most representative of Dalí, even if it's a later one, being painted in 1975, which is the Gala nude looking at the sea, which is at 18 meters apart. Which at 18 meters appears the President Lincoln from 1975. It's a huge painting, and it's actually located in the museum on such a distance that you can see Gala very well. And now, thanks to cell phones, if you watch through the camera of your cell phone, you can really, really well see the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. So it's one of those images that shows you as well that Dalí studied a lot of the effects, of visual effects, like, for instance, then stereoscopic works or other games that regarding optic effects. Okay, if we can change to the next slide. This is one of the rooms right next to the stage, which is the treasure room. And as you see, it's decorated as a like a little jewel box with all this red velvet on the floor and on the walls. And you see that this is the room that Dalí actually wanted to be like a jewel box with the pieces that he most cared about. So one of you see a lot of paintings of Gala. You see some views from Cadaqués. You see the basket of bread, which is so famous, and Dalí painted for to publicize a little bit the Marshall Plan regarding the recovery of Europe right after the war. And you see two paintings that are absolutely important to understand Salvador Dalí, which are The Spectre of Sex Appeal and Leda Atómica. If we can change the slides. This helps us, and of course the girl from Figueres, excuse me, that's my bad, I missed her. The girl of Figueres is an acquisition of the museum, so it's not part of the collection that Dalí actually had in his possession that he wanted to put in the museum. So the foundation invested in well, if I remember well, it wasn't an auction. We participated, got the painting, and it was one of Dali's last wishes, to have this painting back in the museum. He painted this painting in 1926, and from the terrace of his of the house in Figueres that they had. And this was kind of his introduction card to Pablo Picasso, whom he met in Paris as well. He went with this painting to Pablo Picasso, showed it, and said, "This is who I am. This is my painting. This is who I want. Well, this is everything that makes me as a painter." And Pablo Picasso seemed to be quite impressed. And afterwards, he showed him his whole studio in Paris. And you see that also the landscape has quite an importance here. If we change to the next slide, where we see the specter of sex appeal, we see it far better. Because here we have it. In this slide, you see one of the surrealist paintings that maybe best expresses Salvador Dali's art. It's actually very, very small. And you see this surrealist scene of the female figure that melts down and has this, that melts down in a landscape that is a real landscape. It's a photorealistic landscape, actually. So he combines dream or nightmare and reality. And this is a place that actually exists in Cadaqués. So you see that the landscape, the light, confers sort of a feeling of a how do you call it, an afternoon, a summer afternoon, right on the sea, on the beach. But then again, you have this horrific figure right in the center, right? But Dalí used to take his painting material to the coast and sort of started making impressionist paintings as well. But then he evolved and included elements like the surrealistic elements, like as you see here. And when he left for the United States, he kind of started continuing doing this, right? He tried to remember a lot of this, of these elements from the landscape, especially from Cadaqués, which was such an important place for him. But as the years passed, you see that he starts painting from memory, actually, right? And during the time in the United States, he used to travel a lot between New York, which you have very close, but he also spent a lot of time in California, especially in the Monterey Peninsula. And this is the place where here we have him working in his studio in Pebble Beach. And there he seemed to have found sort of sort of the light, the landscape that he was used and that he so much loved from his home here, right? But still, it was very different. It was not that violent. We call it a very, very, not violent, but a hostile landscape, because it's very rocky. There's not so much. There are not much vegetation, actually. You don't see a lot of trees or anything. It's very hostile, rocky, and nothing else. And for what I know, at least, the West Side Coast is also quite rocky and quite yes, maybe more desertic, I think is the word. But you have a little more green elements over there, right? Especially in Monterey, where you have I think it's the emperor butterfly that passes the season there. So it's very different to the landscape that we have actually here. But still, since it was a place that has a Spanish past too, it seemed that Dalí felt very good there, and he spent most of the summers there. And then in the winters, he went back to New York. And as he returned in 1948 to Spain, he kind of did the same. So he spent his summers in Cadaqués, actually spring and summer in Cadaqués, and during autumn and winter, he went to New York, to the United States, and he continued on doing doing exhibits there. So this was kind of his, exactly, it's the monarch butterfly. Sorry, it's the monarch butterfly, and it's Monterey, California, exactly. So this was quite his kind of the trips that he made during most of the time until he was an old man and he couldn't travel that much anymore because his condition just didn't let him travel anymore. If we change to the next slide, we see L'Età Atomica. And here you see actually what I said, that he starts to paint from memory and making an idealized landscape, because it still has the reminiscence of this landscape of the coast, but it's different. It's more dreamlike, right? And as well, you see that Gala, his wife, this is one of the portraits of her, was one of his main models. Especially during his youth, it was his father and his sister. But as Gala arrived into his life in 1929, things changed completely, and Gala was the center of his life. She was not only the love of his life, but she was also his manager, his art merchant. She did everything. She did the whole administrative work. Well, as I said before, she was the driver. She made everything, and Dalí was the one that created. And she gave him the peace and the time to create. And she actually read a lot of books to him while he was painting. So it was a very harmonious relationship they had, until later when Dalí was preferred to have a kind of more people around himself in Portugal. And Gala was looking more for a calmer pace, for her space, to have her peace, and having her own space where she could be just enjoy the time and just chill, actually. That's why Dalí gave her actually the castle. So it was a promise that he made during one of the trips to the United States on boat. They only traveled on boat, never by plane, because Dalí was terribly afraid of flying, even if he made an ad with Braniff. But he just didn't enjoy flying very much. So he always went on a cruiser, one of these big cruisers, and crossed during 2 weeks the whole Atlantic, and that's it. If we change to the next slide, we will change to another room, which is the fishmonger's room. And this was actually the fish market of our city, Figueres. And this is one of the rooms that actually has sort of a chronological walkthrough. You have some paintings on the left side where you can see his introduction to Surrealism. And on the right side, you have all those pictures where you can learn, or where you see the influences Dalí had. As I said before, he was a huge fan of art history. Like he really loved to read all the little books that he had around. He loved reading magazines about art. Actually, his uncle sent him a lot of magazines all the time. And you see that he loved Cézanne, that he loved Picasso, that he loved Impressionist painters, Pointillist painters, that he experimented a lot with abstract art even, that he just kept going. Everything he got, he read, and he was like a sponge, and he just took it all. And step by step, he evolved into his own style. And this was one of the critics he actually got when he was very young. They told the magazines tend to write that, yeah, he's very influenced by this artist or the other artist, but he didn't have his own style yet. But when he evolved into his own style, into this surrealist, and later this more atomic style, you see that everything shifted, of course, and that they were very, very interested in how he tried to show the subconscious and all these yeah, these very how do you say, yeah, that he tried to be a little more, or he was very extreme. He didn't try to be extreme. He was very extreme, and people really loved that. Some of them were very shocked when they saw some of his pictures, but others were definitely dazzled in love, and they loved that he was trying to shock everybody, right? And this was part of the character of Salvador Dali, and that he so much worked in. This is what made him famous, aside from his mustache. If we can change the slide, please. This would be the Mae West room. Here you have two of my colleagues from the conservation department working right away on this installation. Mae West was a very he had high regards of Mae West. He was completely in love with her, and he considered her to be the first surrealist woman at all. And that's why he devoted not only a very known it's a gouache, yeah, that is at the in Chicago. They have it in Chicago, right, at the Art Institute of Chicago. Sorry for that. He also made this whole room. And as a little detail, the wig was actually of real hair, but of course, as an organic element that hair is, it degraded quite a bit, and they had to change it for an artificial wig. And right away, even if you can see that the lip sofa and the paintings on the wall and the nose make the face, there is a lens through which you can see the actual apartment, how he considered or how he conceived it. And this is a very interactive room. So this is maybe one of the things that is most beautiful of the museum. That is it's an interactive museum, and a lot of children enjoy this very, very much. Even if you can't touch a lot of things, Dali wanted you to emerge into the museum, right? This is a surrealist object. It's like I said, a surrealist object that he conceived with paintings, with sculptures, with installations. So you go in, it's like diving into his mind, right? And this is what he wanted us. And when you dive into someone's mind, you can see how a person thinks, but you also have to make your own interpretations, right? So it's a huge game for the visitor always. And this is what Dalí wanted. He wanted the visitors to enjoy the work, to play with it a little bit. So every time you enter the museum, depending on the day you have, depending on what you read before, depending on your whole knowledge, you see some things or you see other things. And this makes it so interesting to go there together and to talk about what you see, actually. Because it enriches very much, and it permits you to deepen your knowledge into the whole artist and this art world, right? If we can change the slide. And this is actually one of the last rooms that has the importance in Dalí's room. This is the Palace of Wind. This was during the theater times, the room where the spectators could take a rest between act and act of the theater piece, right? And Dalí changed it completely. Absolutely. He divided it into 4 rooms, actually. And some little facts. When I make a tour there with people, I always, if there's not so many movement around, I ask them to lay on the floor and just enjoy the ceiling, because I think it's the best way to enjoy the ceiling. This is actually a painting made of 5 canvases and made in Portugal. Okay, so you have like 40 kilometers in between Portugal and Figueres, and all of the 5 canvases have to be taken out through the window. Okay, they're huge. As you can see, the room is really, you can see the chairs. you get an idea how big the room is through the chairs. And this was in some way Dalí's gift, a symbolical gift to Figueres. And let me just step by step go into that. This painting has a lot of elements that are repeated. Okay, so these elements, you can see them in a lot of other paintings of Dalí. So it's sort of a resume of his career. And Dalí we always say it in the archive, that Dalí tends to recycle a lot of elements in his paintings. But this is what makes him, sort of readable, right? Because all these elements have a symbolic meaning for him. Like, for instance, the ant, or how time flies, right? With the melting clocks. And in this case, you have the images of Dalí and Gala. Dalí is dressed in blue and has actually shelves that you can see that well here from this view, but he has shelves that come out of his body. And Gala is dressed in red without shelves. So Dalí opens himself to the city. Gala is present, but Dalí opens himself to the museum, to the people of Figueres. And at one part there are coins falling from clouds. So this is sort of his gift to the city as well, because his idea was, of course, to attract as many people as possible to visit the museum, to see his work. And in this sense, also to take care of the city of Figueres, because if people come, there will people be visiting the city, there will be people liking the city, there will maybe people that move to the city. So it's a gift in many senses, actually. There's also, you can see some elements like the elephant with the long mosquito, with the mosquito-like legs. You can see the clock, the melting clocks that are so famous from the sorry, I'm a little, it's not my day today. You can see the melting clocks, of course, the soft clocks. That's what I wanted to say, the soft clocks. And he also made a little self-painting, a little self-portrait, and a painting of his photographer, Melito Casals. We have seen some pictures of him actually here during the presentation, because Melito Casals was at his side to sort of document the whole process of the refurbishment and the creation and then the opening of the museum. He was a very close friend to Dalí, and the son of Melito Casals is still in the city and still working as a photographer as well. So this is, it's as you see, it's a very historical and historical place, and there's a lot of sense of heritage, and this makes it very beautiful and very special, actually. Another thing, another painting that we have here is this self-portrait of Salvador Dalí from 1921. And another thing that that is very beautiful to have in mind is that that he chose the marks of the paintings by himself. Okay, so you see the painting that we have enlarged here on this slide as well, and you see how big the whole mark of the painting is. This says a lot of the opinion that he had about himself. He is a great painter, and he saw himself as a great painter in 1921 as well, or already, if you want so, right? And in this room as well, you have you have a sofa and a bed. The bed is, you can see it actually at the end of the room. There is a bed and there's a bathtub, right? And both of them are from a brothel in Paris that he didn't love the brothel in itself, but they were selling. They were selling the bed, they were selling the bathtub and a lot of things of the brothel. And he said, "I need this for the museum." So he took it in, and he had right away a place for these elements in the museum, right? And I'm actually already at the end of the presentation. And I don't know, Jessica, do you want to introduce the video, or shall I introduce the video?
Oh, I was sorry. I said we could both do it, but first,
Great.
that was incredible. Mil gracias. And go ahead, tell them a little bit about the clip we're going to show.
First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry because I've seen that some people said that I was speaking too fast. I'm sorry. When I get nervous, I speak very, very fast. I'm sorry for that.
Okay. You did a wonderful job. Everyone who shares on our Facebook, we have the video that will be up. It's subtitled. You can also watch the recording again on YouTube on our museum crawl playlist. So no worries. This is really
perfect. So we have a little video ready, which is to show you a bit how the museums are, where we are, and to maybe if you are very welcome to come. And maybe with this video, you get a little more excited to come here and maybe to spend your summer here as well. And of course, you are so welcome. And it's a pleasure being here. And thank you so much for having me, of course.
After our little video, we're going to open up the floor to Q&A. Again, thank you everyone who submitted throughout the presentation. We're going to do your questions at the very end.
Yeah,
we're going to play the video now. Oh, technical difficulties. We're going to try that again. Thank you, Mani. All right, let's see if that works. No, Amani, not yet. No sound. Sorry, everyone. Sometimes we get a little lag when we're doing some museum crawls. How about Imani, we'll go to the Q&A and we'll retry the video at the end. I think we'll do that. So Fiona, we had some lovely questions in the chat and we're going to take you back to the beginning of your presentation. Someone wants to know what year the Cadillac was manufactured, if you know.
Yes, actually the work started in the Dalí year, 2004. But catalog raisonné is a lot of work. So you have to delve very much into the base of the origin of every painting, right? And we just finished in, just let me recall it right, I think it was in 2017. It's a 1,000-piece catalog, actually. All the 1,000 pieces that are in the catalog raisonné, we know for sure that there are Dalí pieces. We made the provenance research, which is maybe one of those points that is, this is the heavy point of research, actually, the provenance of every artwork. Right. See every owner that had a piece or had this piece, right? And of course, by bibliographical research, exhibitional research, we contacted with a lot of museums, like the Museum of Modern Art, like the Metropolitan. Of course, we had made very close work, we worked very close together, excuse me, with the Reina Sofia Museum here in Spain, in Madrid, and with the Dalí Museum of St. Petersburg in Florida, which were amazing partners giving us all the information they had available, actually. So in this sense, it was a huge task, took long years. I was just there during the last part from 1965 until 1983. So it's heavy research, actually, and it took a lot of time.
Fiona, ¿alguien quiere saber el año del carro?
¿Qué carro?
El Cadillac.
El Cadillac. Creo, si no recuerdo mal, if I don't recall wrong, it's 1934, I think, but I'm not sure. 1934, pero no estoy del todo segura. Tendría que mirarlo otra vez, si quieren.
Okay, so perhaps 1934 for the Cadillac. ¿Alguien más quiere saber what is the statue on the car, on top of the Cadillac?
Yes, this is an Esther. It's called Esther, and it was a gift from the sculpture, Austrian sculptor called Fuchs. He was a close friend to Dalí, and it was a gift from him for opening the museum, and he positioned it right on the Cadillac. Okay. It's very nice because when you enter the museum right away, you have it right in front. So you enter the garden or the patio, and just in front you have the car with Esther on it, and behind you have the column made out of not wheels, pneumatics. Is it called? Yeah. And above, on the top of it, you have the boat. Okay.
Someone wants to know why the car. Why is it so important to Dalí? Why is it at the museum?
Because there were like 6 other cars like that. So there weren't that many. And one of them, and the story is we don't know if it's true or not, but the story behind of it is sort of that it has broken glass because I don't recall if it was Al Capone, but one of those big mafia bosses going around during the time of the dry laws, right? It's the dry law in the United. It was the dry law in the United States. That during that time, Al Capone had such a car that it was shot, that the windows broke, and that's why he wanted the windows also being broken. So it has also this kind of fetish story behind it.
Someone wants to know why did he use Abraham Lincoln's image in the piece that looks a little pixelated?
I have no idea. I know. I can tell you that he had a lot of interest in history.
Okay.
We actually have in the library a lot of history books. It's unimaginable everything that he had read or that Gala read for him. But he was insatiable in this sense. And you have a lot of books about science, about history, huge biographies of politicians. So it might be that he was very huge. I don't know. An admirer of him, yes, or that he just had like everybody of us has, and I think that's very particular of Dalí too, because when you start seeing how he worked, you see that he made lots of notes and a lot of little drawings, and of course a lot of these didn't end up in being a piece of art, so he just disregarded them and put them everywhere. And but he sometimes has these obsessions with some issues, with some things, and you see that in this moment he centers himself very much on this, and you see that a lot of paintings come out. It maybe could also be just that because of this famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln, that he saw in it the perfect window to put around Gala and to show a landscape again.
Okay. I mean, we have some theories
in the chat. Admiration both for the politician, for
some theories in the chat are that perhaps he could identify with Lincoln, having the fact that Lincoln also lived through a civil war, maybe. But Chet, that's your homework assignment. Let us know. If you find out, let us know. Send Fiona, leave a message on our Facebook or our YouTube and let us know.
Please.
Yeah. We have a few more questions. Alex wants to know, was Gala also from Spain? How did they meet? And
Yes.
did she also create art herself?
This is a very nice question. This is a wonderful question. And I'm sorry that I couldn't enter in some points more. First, because of the nerves, and then because we also don't have that much time, of course. But Gala was Russian. Gala was Russian. She was 8 years older than Dalí. So she was 8 years his major. And she lived through the Russian Revolution. So she knew, actually, she already knew what war was and how it felt like. Gala was married previously to the French poet, Surrealist poet, Paul Éluard. And Dalí actually met first Paul Éluard, and right afterwards he met Gala. And the thing went on like this, more or less. Dalí and Paul Éluard met in Paris on one of these fancy dinners that they made to socialize. And Dalí was already quite known and quite admired by the Surrealist group. And he was already part of them. And he started to inviting everybody over to Cadaqués to come there and spend the summer over there. Who wouldn't? I mean, the views are wonderful. Who wouldn't? And first came Magritte, because Cadaqués was a place where a lot of famous artists went. Also, Marcel Duchamp, who was also a friend of Dalí, had a house there. So a lot of artists came over. And sorry, not Magritte, Matisse.
Okay.
No, I'm saying it wrong. Magritte. Sorry, it's the hours here. And
great.
And Paul Éluard also came, but Paul Éluard came with his wife, right? So it was love at first sight. Dalí was completely flashed when he saw her, and it seems that Gala had the same feeling. It was mutual right away. Paul Éluard left. Gala spent a few days more there, and then they decided, okay, I'm going back to Paris. I end my marriage with Paul Éluard, and we're going to do this together from now on. And she made a sacrifice in some sense here, because she was married, but she also had a kid. She had a daughter, Cécile Éluard, and she abandoned everything. We must say, she wasn't a very she wasn't the mother figure that you expected. She wasn't that, or that you expect a woman to be, right? Or that you expect her then to be. Now it is more accepted.
Society expected. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. She was very modern in this sense, and she never gave it a lot of importance. And that being said, she tried to have them covered in everything. Okay, so when Paul Éluard and his daughter, and also the new partner of Paul Éluard, Nour, went through a very bad time during the war, she tried to give them money and to have them covered all the expenses that they would be needed. Okay, the same she did for her family, for part of a family that she had contact with. Mm-hmm. So it's a very, very interesting story, and we've now, the last few years, we are giving Gala a lot more importance. So there is a lot of literature actually going that you can consult on Gala and her importance in Dalí's life and work, because that was the other part of the question, if I recall well, right?
Yes.
Gala created, sort of. She also wrote a book, her own autobiography, or, well, it's more, I think, like a compendium of her letters and her thoughts. She participated in some works like Cadaver Exquise, which are works made between a lot of artists, like 4 or 5 maybe, where every artist paints a part of the picture, or draws a part. So it's a very eclectic type of art or work. So I really much recommend to check them. And she also participated in some of the works that Dalí made that it needed a lot of participation, because there were like pavilions or installations that needed where she also intervened, like the pavilion, the Venus pavilion of the World Fair that took place in New York in 1939. She was involved in that too, and Dalí very much recognized her involvement in his art, and her participation, let it be participating really by painting or by helping to mount some of the things, as the work she did more like the paperwork or the merchant work, right? And that's why he also, some of the paintings, he signed them Gala-Salvador Dalí.
That's beautiful.
Very nice. It's a very beautiful love story.
Yes. We have about 4 more minutes. We have a lot of questions. I included Fundación Dalí's information in the chat. I'm going to type it again. If you're curious about anything, it's a wonderful website. You can access it in a variety of languages. We have a few more questions that maybe we can answer. Someone would like to know the actual birth and death of Dalí, the date.
Yeah, sorry for that. I forgot that. 1904, he was born in 1904, and he died in 1989. So it's not that far away, actually. It's 32 years away.
Okay. Someone wants to know why there are eggs, there's sculptures of eggs on top of the building.
Yeah, the foundation building, a part of the museum, the eggs. He had a lot of respect for those elements in food that are basic, like bread. That's why we have also the bread sculptures. Eggs are very, if you go through the catalog raisonné and look for eggs over there, you see quite a bit pictures that have the elements, that be fried eggs or the ones, the complete egg, whatever you want, you can find it there. Yes. So it's the tradition that bread, foods in general, of course, but these basic elements are very important.
All right, let's do 2 more questions. A few people in the chat and in the Q&A wanted to know what was in Mae West's nostrils that looks so shiny.
Yes, it's wood. It's golden wood.
Gold.
I think it's
nice.
So I think it's paneled over with this golden paper.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it. And there are lights behind of it to reflect a little more. So yeah.
Someone wants to know, you've been so incredible throughout this presentation. You know a lot about Dalí and about his work and his life. Have you ever met anyone in Dalí's family? And what made you decide to focus on Dalí?
Oh, wow. So that's a little personal one. I met his cousin.
Okay.
The daughter of his cousin. Yes. In a small presentation that was done here in the Ampordà Museum. So it's the City Museum of Figueres, and they made a very nice, a wonderful exhibit on the family of Dalí. So of course his cousin was invited, as well as the maid that took care of his sister. They're very advanced age. I think they're around 80 years old now. So yes, they are still alive. Aside from these members, from the cousin part, Figueres especially has a lot of stories to tell about Dalí, because as I said, the time he spent here in the city, if it was in Cadaqués or if he was here in Spain, he spent a lot of time here in Figueres. So every older person has a story to tell about his relationship or some experience he had with Dalí, and this is very beautiful. This is amazing to live. He's very present still.
That's beautiful. I had the opportunity to visit in like 2011 or 2010.
I hope you're coming back soon.
Yes, please. And I hope that you're, when we're able to travel a little bit more freely, come to the Newark Museum, come visit. I think it'd be a wonderful
thank you so much.
exchange of ideas, artwork.
Totally.
And thank you very much, Fiona. Thank you so much to your team and to your museum. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Before I let you all go, we do have another museum crawl coming up, and that is with the Jewish Museum in Frankfurt on January 25th at noon. And again, I've included that link in our chat. You can also visit our website. If you miss it, do not worry. You can also watch it on our Facebook and on our YouTube page. And this Sunday, we will be celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King. Make sure that you join us for a wonderful discussion about art, equity, and activism. We'll be joined by Jakari Harris, who's the executive director at the George Floyd Memorial Foundation, Nina Cook, Linda Street, and we will have a panelist. The panel will be moderated by artist and historian Noelle Lorraine Williams, and that link is also in the chat. Again, mil gracias, Fiona, and thank you for everything.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Hasta luego, everyone. If you missed the video, I've also included the video link in the chat. So again, thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.